This episode is brought to you by the Vail Wine Classic. Head up to the mountains for this beautiful celebration of international wines and spirits, as well as Colorado's home favorites like Carboy Winery, Outer Range Brewing, and Woody Creek Distillers. Going down August 6th through the 8th, this big wine event features programming such as sommelier-led wine hikes, paired lunches and dinners at Vail's top restaurants, and an exclusive sunset showcase called Best of Fest, featuring 90-plus rated wines overlooking the Gore Range. Ticket prices go up as it gets closer to August, but you can save money right now by buying sooner. Just use code CITYCAST at checkout for $10 off. For tickets and a full schedule, visit vailwineclassic.com. And don't forget to use code CITYCAST for $10 off. This episode is brought to you by Denver Bike Fest. Check out Denver Bike Fest Saturday, June 13th from 3 to 9 p.m. at York Street Yards. This free, all-ages celebration of Denver's bike community brings you live music from Boys with Blue, Modern, and Yugs. Plus, drinks from Cohesion Brewing, 8 food vendors, and 50-plus bike partners offering demos, workshops, games, and so much more. Roll up to the fest and take advantage of the free bicycle valet from Z Cycle Shop. Oh, did I mention we will be there? Come hang out with CityCast Denver as we keep the fun rolling on the main stage. Learn more about the celebration and sign up to volunteer at denverbikefest.app. That's denverbikefest.app. Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. So today we're talking about the wacky GOP primary race for governor, the big flip-flopper candidate in the CD-8 race, wins and fails of the week, and so much more. One of our fave political contributors is back. Adrian Felix, hello.
Hello, happy to be here.
Hi. And he's a reporter, host of Next on 9 News. You might know him. He made national headlines again this week for putting the screws to some of our favorite local political candidates. Kyle Clark, welcome back.
Hey there, long time no hear.
I know. I'm so excited to have you. Okay, guys, before we get into it, I just have a little bit of business. Come see CityCast Denver this weekend at Denver Bike Fest at York Street Yards from 3 to 9 p.m. Olivia and Paul will be hosting the main stage. This is an all-ages free, bike-friendly event. We would love to see you there. Come say hello and bring your bike. Hang out with us. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. And okay, business done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Kyle, let's talk about you.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm.
So for folks who may have missed this, you recently moderated a debate with your colleague, Marshall Zellinger, featuring the GOP candidates running in this month's primary for governor, State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer, State Representative Scott Bottoms, and a gentleman named Victor Marks. Kyle, I have to ask, do you normally ask the audience not to clap or cheer during a debate? Because you guys did that at the beginning.
Yes,
okay.
that is every time. And then usually we have to remind each audience one time after that because it's just a natural human reaction. But the problem is if it becomes like a cheering contest between different factions, that eats into the hour that we have. So we can just never let it turn into that.
Sure. Okay. I was just making sure that wasn't just like we know everybody's going to be off the wall, so can you chill? Or if this is a normal thing. Adrian, what did you think about what was your overall takeaway of this conversation or debate that Kyle and Marshall had with these folks?
Well, I have sincere condolences to Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer being the adult on stage, the one who actually has the resume and tenure to actually win elections as well as lead the state. But unfortunately, she's a part of a party that really doesn't desire to win elections or, be serious about that process. But also that I was certainly proud that no one ever resorted to name calling, which I think is a very big thing, especially in today's national politics. I thought they did quite well, despite how funny it was to watch Victor Marks be Victor Marks. He is certainly a wild person. And obviously I think Kyle and Marshall did a very good job of reining him in when they could, which was a very difficult thing. Having to remind a candidate every time about how much time they have to speak, I couldn't imagine. But it was very interesting to watch. I watched in its entirety, but I'm from Weld County, so I know Barbara Kirkmeyer's tenure very well. I feel terrible for her because, wow.
Kyle, what was your big takeaway from this conversation?
Well, I think you've got three flavors of Republican politics today, right? You have Barb Kirkmeyer, who arguably on paper is the most qualified Republican nominee for governor in 20 years, right? Dating back to Bill Owens. So not since we've had our one Republican governor in the last half century have Republicans put up somebody who's as seriously qualified as she is. But it's also not clear that Republican primary voters care or are interested in that these days. So then you've got the two other flavors. You've got the Scott Bottoms, like kind of MAGA absolutist flavor with a little bit of the Trumpy, I'll say anything, whether it's true or not. The things that he will say without any attempt to justify them with facts is very, very Trump-like, okay? And then you have the kind of MAGA alpha male flavor that Victor Marx is offering, which is just, I don't have a lot of policy chops or governing chops, but if you want to, I can take somebody out back and I can beat their rear end, right? And that's what he offers, and that's a very popular flavor in Republican politics today. So Republican primary voters can choose their fighter, literally.
Whoa. I think so. Again, John Oliver last week tonight on HBO picked this story up. I mean, I'm always surprised when it does get outside of Colorado because I feel like we're so used to this kind of conversation, but there was a particular unhingedness to this conversation. I think John pointed this out on Victor Marx's website. It's like a fast facts section, and he says he's like trained in this special form of Christian karate. Like, these are the things that he's offering I mean, to be honest with you, these are the things that he's offering voters when he's saying, this is who I am. I wonder, with these three flavors, as you say, Kyle, where do you think this leaves the GOP? Because I honestly, I see two different GOPs happening here. I see this kind of conversation with the candidates, and then I think about the behind the scenes money side of it with Advance Colorado and the folks that are getting things on the ballot for the GOP side from the measure perspective versus the candidate perspective. So what does that say, or what is this GOP we're looking at in Colorado right now?
When I talk to Republicans, a lot of them think that no matter who they put up for governor, they're going to get trucked in November. A lot of Republicans that I talk to think that if they put up Barb Kirkmeyer, they could get trucked by a respectable number. Whereas if they put up Bottoms or Marks, then they're likely on a fast train to Heidi Ganahl and Furrytown and the 20-point loss that they took 4 years ago. But listen, you talk to Scott Bottoms, and Scott Bottoms says quite confidently that he's going to win, right? Scott Bottoms says everything confidently. It's just when you ask him for the facts to back it up, that stuff gets hairy. If you talk to Victor Marx, he'll tell you that he taps into like the Trump type spectrum of voter, where a lot of unaffiliated are just like, you know what? Why have we elected people to govern? Why not elect somebody who is an expert in Cajun karate and a gun disarmer and may or may not have killed a bunch of people in overseas high-risk missionary work that he won't talk about? So there's lots of confidence, but when you talk to Republicans privately, a lot of them think that they're headed towards a really brutal November.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my other thought here is you brought up Heidi Ganahl. We've had you on the show. We had you in our special on Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert Can't Lose, to dig into that situation. You've seen these candidates. You know this routine. I wonder, I don't know if this is an ignorant question, but kind of like, why bother with the GOP gubernatorial debate when you kind of know what you're walking into? Like, how do you see this, or how do you see this as a service to voters?
I think people should know who the candidates are and what they stand for. I also think, right, there's two ways to approach this. The one way to approach talking about the candidates in a race like this is to focus just on, what are they going to do for schools, and what are they going to do for roads, and what do they think about Tabor? And then the other way to handle it is like, hey, listen, you've heard them talk about those topics at 25 different forums. What you may not have heard is about this dude who talks about killing people all the time. How many people has he killed? Let's talk about the exorcisms that he says are the secret sauce of his ministry, and whether he performs them by phone, and whether you can buy the $99 spiritual warfare guide on his website. Let's talk about Scott Bottoms, who says that there's a 50,000-man Tren de Aragua Venezuelan army lurking in rural Colorado, which when you talk talk to sheriffs, they'll laugh out loud at that. So I understand that some reporters say, that stuff's uncomfortable. Let's just talk about the roads and the bridges and the schools. And, if we find out about the exorcisms later, if these folks get elected, that's just like a little treat for voters, And my thought is, well, no, it all counts, right? Character counts, policy counts. So let's get it all out there in the open and talk about it.
Adrian, what do you think about this? I mean, obviously, you're not a member of the GOP. You're really viewing this from the other side. But I wonder, what do you think about this approach to trying to get, Kyle's doing his best to try to get something out of someone that we haven't heard at 25 other debates before?
Well, that there is like a place for it, because ultimately I'm a firm believer that the Colorado GOP exists not to get people elected, but for the idea of a culture war. And within those culture wars, they are won, at least by the GOP in theory, by like obviously disseminating misinformation. And so obviously those are the moments that give like Kyle and Marshall the ability to kind of dispel those things, right? It's like, it may not be a serious thing in terms of an election, but in terms of the culture war itself, what is the truth? What are the facts? And how do we push back on that?
Kyle, what do you think about the culture war conversation? Because that obviously is integral to this tactic by at least this segment of the GOP.
I think there are lots of people within Republican politics today, and this is not exclusive to Colorado, that have different definitions of winning. And sometimes it's winning elections, and sometimes it is making money or building a brand for themselves. Certainly, the people who are putting up ballot measures in Colorado, those folks want to win. Sometimes they just want to make a statement too. But when you talk about advanced Colorado, right, like very rich people don't do these things for sport, right? They do them for a reason. And I think they're very serious about winning. But I also think that there's a faction within the Colorado GOP, especially when you look at the way that their leadership has worked over the last 6 years or so, that just loves mess. Right?
Yeah.
Some people just, they like to have some messy stuff going on, and they treat it like sport. And I think for a lot of Republican voters, it's frustrating because they would like to see serious attempts at governance, and instead what they get are like social media spats.
Yeah. I kind of, what you just said is what I kind of think about adults in general, is sometimes we're just looking for drama and mess. And this is the avenue that folks choose. Some folks choose politics, which is crazy to me, but you could go into theater or some other form of I don't know. That's a really interesting way to put it. As far as the Advanced Colorado piece is concerned, I just feel I did this great interview with Logan Davis, a reporter with the Colorado Times Recorder, who looked into sort of the web of Advanced Colorado and what money is traveling through what organizations to get to these ballot measures. And it just makes me think there's the money and those folks that are behind the scenes. And then there's these wackos that are on stage and it's almost like they're not part of the same party, but I guess maybe they're advancing the same goals. Are these two separate things, or I don't know, maybe I'm crazy?
Well, Victor Marx has raised a lot of money. Victor Marx has raised a significant amount of money, right?
Good point.
I mean, he has been roughly competitive with the Democrats, with Michael Bennet and Phil Weiser, in terms of raising money. Whether he would be able to keep up that pace, whether any outside money would realistically come in a state where Republicans lost the last gubernatorial election by nearly 20 points, I think it's probably unlikely. But listen, don't dispense the fact that like that man is sitting on a ton of cash. He's going to be all over TV. He's going to be able to get his message out. Now, there are Republicans within the party that think that his message is not really seriously about winning, but just about building his own brand that he can then take with him after this race. But there's lots of people in politics that are interested in building a brand. So we'll have to wait and see.
Adrian, I mean, obviously this got picked up by John Oliver. And he didn't really have to cherry pick from Kyle and Marshall's conversation. This was literally, you could kind of look at the thing as a whole. What do you think that when someone like John Oliver is paying attention to what's going on in Colorado, what do you think that says about us?
I mean, well, I think that from his perspective, it's probably a ratings thing. You're kind of like looking for the story that has the best ratings that would get people to really pay attention. And if you look at the comments on his videos or any videos about that debate, it's largely commentary about what is happening in Colorado, like what is happening to our politics right now. So it's like, in one way, it's good that people are so focused on the things that we're doing, but at the same time, it's like, it's not good because it's like wacko politics. But I feel that this like very emblematic of the politics that we're in 2026. So I get it from a comedian and like ratings perspective, but as a Coloradan, it certainly makes you cringe that like this is our reality to a large extent.
I mean, this is not the first time this has happened to you, Kyle. Also, I I wonder, what do you think or feel when the magnifying glass or the spotlight nationally comes on to something that you're working on like this? Because I feel like which race was it? The candidate that was like caught drunk driving. You had a moment like this.
That was the Republican primary taking on Lauren Boebert in CD4.
Yes.
That was former House Minority Leader Mike Lynch, who successfully kept his drunk driving arrest quiet until after he was elected to leadership. No, that was the clip that got played on Jimmy Kimmel. And
that's right.
When our local coverage gets picked up nationally, it kind of is what it is. It's right. It's not what we do. It's not why we do it. It's not who we do it for. We're not doing it for a national audience. We're doing it for voters in Colorado. It's fine if other people want to look in on what we're doing, or if they see value in it. I will say it's nice when local journalism is spotlighted on late night shows for something other than a punchline. Right? A lot of times you'll see, especially local TV news, which I have lots of complaints about and lots of thoughts about, showcased as a laughing stock. So I think if they're showcasing actual journalism that's coming out of the local level, so be it. Great. Fantastic. We'll take that whenever, but that's not our audience. Our audience is Coloradans, and hopefully they see value in it. And if somebody else gets something out of it, or if they get a laugh out of it, it is what it is. It's not what we're there to do, though.
Yeah. What do you take away from this situation? I don't know if it's necessarily the John Oliver attention of it all, or just the fact that you got some of these folks to say things that maybe they hadn't said out loud or just said on their websites. But I don't know. I would love to hear from you, Kyle, on something that you're taking away from this moment, or just something that you couldn't say in the debate that you wanted to say about what you were seeing or experiencing.
I hope that it encourages more journalists to just ask very basic, straightforward questions, right? None of this is wild off the wall stuff. None of this is, I've got a secret source or I uncovered these documents or whatever else. It's just simply, hey man, you talk about killing people all the time. How many people have you killed? That's a really basic question, right? Or, he talks about how these exorcisms casting off demons are the secret sauce of his ministry. How does the exorcism work, guy? Like, where does the demon go? Like, these are very basic questions, but I think some reporters get uncomfortable about it. So they're like, well, I'm going to ask about transportation policy. I don't know. I think voters deserve to know about the demons. And this is all just like, this is basic, straightforward stuff, and instead of just repeating when Scott Bottoms says there's pedophile rings at the Capitol, how about digging into that a little bit? When he says there's a 50-man Venezuelan army lurking in Colorado, how about just looking up that the federal government says that would be 10 to 20 times the number of TDA gangsters in the entire world, and then asking him, where's your evidence? I mean, I don't know. It took me like an hour or two to put together a spreadsheet and contact all 64 sheriffs or their equivalent around Colorado. This is just like basic stuff, and just be like, is this true? It's not exotic stuff. It's not tricky. It's not gotcha. It's just asking people whether they stand by their own words, and then to explain things to voters, as opposed to being like, that's kind of uncomfortable or icky, so I'm going to walk away.
Yeah. Adrian, as a viewer, you're not a journalist. How do you see, what do you view or value out of these conversations?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because Kyle Clark is my biggest inspiration for me to realize that I am not a journalist. It's like something I just don't desire to do in life. But something that Kyle said that I find very interesting is that, he talks about like that it's a basic function of what he does as a journalist. But to the flip side of that, I'm very curious how you deal with the pushback, right? Because you can ask the most basic questions, but that doesn't mean, and I see this on your feed nearly every day, like the continual harassment, the narrative of bias, all of these things that you kind of, I'm sure would make most people scared, certainly me. Like I couldn't deal with it every day. So I'm curious, like as a viewer, as someone who watches, how you deal with that negative pushback in terms of like your courage in asking those questions.
Well, it's just confirmation that the journalism is impactful. If it wasn't impactful, then nobody would bother to threaten us or harass us or whatever else. And so much of the criticism is in such obvious bad faith. You just have to let it go or play with it, have some fun with it, right? But for the folks that are for the folks that are just like, you never make a Democrat squirm like that. It's just like, well, I mean, we've got a Democratic debate on in a couple of days. Why don't you watch that one and see how that one goes? I mean, I would challenge anybody who thinks that to watch our CD-8 Democratic debate between Shannon Byrd and Manny Rutenau. I mean, that was some crawl up the wall stuff. I mean, that was some wild stuff. So when somebody comes back with bad faith criticism of, why did you ask those uncomfortable questions of the Republicans? It's just like, well, book yourself an hour, pop some popcorn, and watch Democratic debate.
Fair enough.
Well, that's a perfect segue into our next topic. Actually, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about that CD-8 race coming up next. All right, we're back.
This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. Created from pollutants like car exhaust, ground-level ozone is the Colorado Front Range's biggest air quality issue and a leading cause of respiratory problems. But you can do something about it. Take simple steps for better air this summer by carpooling and combining car trips to save gas, or by taking the bus or light rail to get where you need to go instead of driving. And when you're parked in parking lots, at the trailhead, or when picking someone up, be sure to turn your car off and don't let the car idle with the AC on. But hey, why not get out of your car altogether? Walk, bike, or scoot shorter distances, or maybe try one of those cool new black and turquoise Vio bikes and scooters that are popping up all around town. And did you know there's still a $225 state rebate on e-bikes? And the city of Denver also has its e-bike rebate opening again on July 7th. Want to know when it matters most to take these steps? Sign up for summer ozone alerts by texting Better Air CO to 21000, or sign up for emails at the Simple Steps Better Air website. Learn more ways to help improve our air quality on the Colorado Front Range at simplestepsbetterair.org. That's simplestepsbetterair.org. This episode is brought to you by Energy Outreach Colorado. Energy Outreach Colorado is a statewide nonprofit helping income-qualified Coloradans pay their energy bills. If you're having to make tough choices like paying utilities or putting food on the table, Energy Outreach Colorado is here to help and ease that burden. Programs range from utility bill assistance to emergency furnace repair to community solar and energy efficiency work. So what does that look like in practice? Well, Energy Outreach Colorado's crisis services keep electricity, gas, and heat running with immediate bill pay assistance. But they also focus on the long term by investing in energy efficiency, electrification, and affordability solutions like community solar, all to help prevent future financial risks for families and neighbors who need it most. Learn how Energy Outreach Colorado is creating affordable energy solutions for Coloradans at energyoutreach.org. That's energyoutreach.org.
Back. Kyle, you brought it up. The CD-8 race, which is to currently it is a seat held by Republican Gabe Evans. This seat has gone back and forth actually between Democrats and Republicans, which I think is what makes it so interesting. But you brought up this debate with Manny Rutenau and Shannon Byrd, both running for the Democratic primary in this particular race. You said you said something about like making your skin crawl or tell me what about that debate just like blew you away as someone who talks to politicians regularly?
I just think that race is fascinating because the first representative who was elected in the 8th was Democrat Yadira Caraveo, who voted as a progressive in the state legislature, went to Congress, then voted as a moderate, including taking all of these like culture war show votes with Republicans, I guess, to like prove that she was in the middle. And she even said to me that, yeah, sometimes I'm not voting my values because I'm trying to vote the district's values and it's a swing district. So her kind of like, let me see if I can moderate on the fly got her one term in Congress, and then she was out. Then they brought in Gabe Evans. Gabe Evans has not tried to moderate at all, right? He is like MAGA through and through. He's a Donald Trump guy. He has not tried at all this kind of tack to the center. So now Democrats have to decide, well, what are you going to do with round 3 of this CD-8 battle in Colorado's most competitive and newest congressional district? So you have a centrist Democrat in Shannon Byrd, right? She is like the definition of like a centrist Democrat, one of the most conservative voting Democrats in the state legislature when she was there. And then you have Manny Rutinel, who is a progressive, except he won't say so. And he is doing this kind of like extreme values makeover real time in front of us during the campaign, which the level of difficulty on that is incredibly high. So I give him a lot of credit for trying to attempt it. But basically, he's like shedding positions weekly. Like, yes, I know I used to be deeply dedicated to this cause, but not anymore. I used to be super into this, but not anymore. I know that I used to stand for this, but actually, if you ask me the question today, I just won't answer it. So what he's trying to pull off is pretty wild to watch in real time. I said after I interviewed him when he announced for Congress, and I said this on the air, it's the only time that I recall ever interviewing somebody, and I've interviewed thousands of people. It's the only interview I've ever done where I felt like I knew less about the person after the interview than before. And after the hour-long debate between Shannon Byrd and Manny Rutinel, I think I might say the same thing. I think that I thought that I knew more about him going in than I did on the way out. Now, how voters perceive that, maybe they won't care. Maybe they'll like somebody who's evolving before their eyes to potentially match where the district is, or maybe they will come away with the feeling that Manny Rutinel's only core belief is that Manny Rutinel should be in Congress. And that obviously would be a difficult place for his campaign to be. We'll see how voters take it.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can't figure it out as a journalist that looks at this information every day, I don't understand how voters could he possibly try to differentiate who he is. Adrian, I have some questions for you really quickly, but I want to lay out some of the things you were just talking about, Kyle, with Manny. Is originally he said he supported banning fracking, canceling student debt, and enacting a single-payer healthcare system. Then the Colorado Sun reported that recently he opposes a ban on fracking and does not support canceling all student debt. He also backed a public health insurance option, but not Medicare for all, which is generally regarded as how single-payer healthcare would operate here if adopted. Those are huge things to flip-flop on. Adrian, I mean, he also, in the way that he discussed himself, like says he was vegan, and now he's saying, like, I mean, he really like demonized the agriculture industry, which that touches part of his district. To me, it's like almost like he was wearing this progressivism until he was like, oh, this is not the right costume. How do you see Manny Rutinel's switch up here?
So I just want to come clean and say that I absolutely hate Shannon Byrd. Like I cannot stand this woman.
Okay.
That's quite a disclosure. Holy
I was like, bias out there. Okay.
I'm just saying, if you go to my Twitter, you will say that I despise this woman. That said, I have been a Manny supporter for a couple of years. What I have said personally to him, and this is going back a good 2 years, his issue has always been his authenticity. Who are you? What do you actually believe in? And, you know, I think that there's something to be said that he is running in a district that has Weld County in it, where a lot of his personal beliefs, or at least beliefs that he used to have, aren't going to play well. So I understand like the need to shift, or to say my perspective has changed. I need to look at the district, but to go as far as to do like a Madonna makeover of I'm in a like totally different era. I'm a totally different person.
In the middle of a campaign.
In the middle of a campaign. And the thing is I really do believe that we're in a point in politics that more than anything, voters respect when you stand 10 toes down on an issue and stay there. Like, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. I think that's a large reason why we see like Donald Trump was successful, is this is who I am. This is my authentic self. Good, bad, ugly. And, you know, for me, it's obviously the latter stuff when I see him. But voters appreciate that. So I don't think it's going to play well. But I think in particular that the debate that was held by Kyle Clark, in which he moderated, that it should have been a wake-up call for the Democrats, that unfortunately they have put 2 candidates up, you know, for the Democratic nomination who are incredibly weak. I said it 2 years ago. I think that if Gabe Evans wins his first election, he will obviously win a second one, depending on who they put up. I think that for a lot of people, that was the realization that they got after viewing that debate.
You know, when you talk about people valuing authenticity, I'm not a political strategist. I'm just somebody that covers politics. But I do think that voters appreciate if somebody says some version of what Yadira Caraveo said, which is, hey, listen, this may not be my view, but I understand it's the view of the district, and I'm going to vote the district's view. I think people get that. I think people would understand if it's like, hey, listen, I've got some core convictions that I understand are not necessarily widely shared in the district, so I'm going to respect that, right? I'm going to vote for what y'all think is best. I also think that people respect when somebody says, hey, I've changed my mind on this issue. You know, when I was in college, which for many was not that long ago, right? When I was in college, I believed one thing. And then I got out into the world and I talked to more people and I understood some more things. And now my view has changed on it. I think, right? Everybody should give grace to people who evolve, especially in politics, right? Show me somebody who's been in politics for 30 years and never changed their mind. I'll show you a fool, right? You know, everybody's minds change. But when you hear the reasoning or the lack thereof for position changes, I mean, I have to read this one back to you, okay? Because when I walked out of the debate, I was thinking about his shifts on fracking or his shifts on healthcare or whatever else. And the only thing that I heard about from people when I walked out of that debate was his explanation for why he is no longer a vegan. So, right? Lots of people dabble in vegetarianism or veganism or whatever, and then decide that it's not for them for a variety of reasons, right? It's really hard. It's really expensive. It can be ostracizing. Like, meat is very tasty, right? There are a million reasons to like walk away from it. And his stated reason for abandoning veganism was, quote, it's important for me to be able to enjoy the delicious products that Colorado ranchers make.
Which is a wild thing to say when he's also been quoted saying animal agriculture is a horrific exploitative industry.
Yeah, I think it's just honestly, it's one of the most craven things that I've ever heard a politician say.
So what I will say, though, is that I don't know him to have ever been a full vegan. I was told by him that he is the type of person that would eat meat so long as it didn't get wasted, because we've seen him eat meat at like fundraisers and parties before. So that's how it was explained to me, is it was like, for the most part, he's vegan, but in order to stop animal the waste from happening, he would eat meat. So when I saw that entire thing transpire, because I did watch, I was like, bruh. But I think it's a play to win Weld County, because obviously Weld County would be the one that would have the issue with the veganism.
But I also think that maybe people are latching on to this part of the conversation, Kyle, like you were mentioning, because it seems to be the most solid position we can figure out where, like, that we've seen him, like, clearly flip-flop on the... I don't know. It's so strange.
Do you remember Meat Out Day?
No.
See, when Jared Polis had Meat Out Day.
Right, when Jared Polis.
And what did Weld County do? I mean, I ate barbacoa tacos on that day, because that's just, you don't do that. But what I also will say just very quickly is that from the voters that I've talked to, because I am from the district, the biggest betrayal for them was the switch on fracking, because he has always pinned himself first and foremost as like the premier environmental legislator. And so for him to switch on that, which he has done for years as like, I'm an environmentalist, that's why I got into politics, I think for voters who know him was like the largest betrayal.
So I would just say on that, plenty of people change their mind on things, including fracking. So I just asked him, why did you change your mind? And he said, well, it's the war in Iran. The war in Iran has pushed up gas prices, so that's why I now support fracking. We tried to explore the through line there. I think that's a little more tenuous, but at the same time, that's his reasoning. Okay, great, that's his reasoning. So I just asked him the other night, so when the war ends, then are you going to be anti-fracking again? And he had nothing. And to me, my question was, there's the position, which has changed, may or may not change back, but I was shocked that he hadn't apparently thought that through or wasn't willing to say aloud what the conclusion would be. Because if I'm a voter at home and it's like, well, this issue matters to me, he's given me a reason why he's flip-flopped. Okay, but that reason could be over in 3 days. If you listen to Donald Trump, he says it every 3 days, but whatever. But if the war ends next week, is Mandy Rootnell going to change his position again? And he had nothing to say on it. I was just baffled. I don't know that I've seen. I want to be careful about how I say this. I have seen a lot of people step onto the debate stage without very well thought through positions or without an intention to defend their positions. We saw some of that in gubernatorial debates last week. The gulf between the hype and the expectation around Mandy Rootnell's candidacy and then his ability to do the basic things like say what he believes and then still believe it 6 months later, that gulf is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Kyle. And we could have a whole other show about his social media presence and such. But if you're listening to this, if you're a CD-8 voter or you watched this debate, we'd love to know what you think. What do you think about the big flip-flop from Mandy Rootnell? Give us a call, 720-500-5418. Leave us a voicemail or send us a text. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, if you are a CityCast Denver neighbor, you get our bonus section, and we're going to be talking about a little area of Denver called Bomar and why they don't want you to come into it. Stay tuned. We're back with our wins and feels of the week. Things that ruled, things that sucked. As always, we start with the sucky things so we can end on a good note. Adrian, what's your fail this week?
Sure. So yesterday, Denver police kind of unveiled a plan to, they gave a proposal that would kind of change their disciplinary process for like more minor infractions. And so instead of like actual disciplinary action, that they're offering training. And so the city had just been, had just seen this proposal and they're not quite sure it's the road that they want to go. But it was a fail for me because I think in particular as a Latino man in Denver, I don't feel safe around police, and I'm not quite sure that they are at a place yet where like removing disciplinary actions for training makes me feel any safer. So that was my fail. It's just like I'm not quite sure, given that we're in 2026 and people, don't necessarily feel safe around police, that this was a step in the correct direction.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like we've already had some payouts this year from police misconduct.
I think last week it was announced another $3 million in police misconduct. So it's like
interesting. Kyle, what's your fail this week?
So not to pile on Denver, but there is that tornado siren whoopsie that we had where they accidentally set off the tornado sirens across the city, even though there was not a tornado. And this is at least the third emergency alert error that Denver has had within the last year. They have sent citywide alerts out telling people to shelter in their homes when they were supposed to notify like a block worth of people. They've told people dangerous situation, go online here for more information, then put up no information there. And every time we hear, oh, it's human error, we need more training, this idea of a tornado siren when there is no tornado. When we talk to the experts about this, our meteorologists, folks with the National Weather Service, experts in emergency alerts, they say this is very, very dangerous. You are teaching people to not pay attention to these life-saving alerts, right?
Sure.
Every time they screw one of these up, they make everyone in the future less effective. And what's happening is instead of Denver fixing the problem, they're finding new ways to screw it up. And I had a conversation on my program Next this week. I had a direct conversation with the mayor about it and said to him and said on air, this is no longer like an Office of Emergency Management problem or a public safety problem because it was the fire department that shot off this bad tornado alert. I guess because a caller called 911 said, I think I see a tornado, and somebody hit the button for that. Holy cow, folks, you can't do that. This is now the mayor's problem. The mayor's in charge of the city. He must fix this because a city in which people don't trust emergency alerts is not a safe place to live.
I mean, we've all been in a restaurant or a store or something when an alarm goes off and everybody just looks and then keeps doing what they're doing.
It took me 5 minutes to realize that's what it was. I was like, I hear it. What is that? And then when I figured it out, I remember holding my cat like, this is it. Like, a tornado.
What do you do when you're in an apartment also and there's a tornado warning? Like,
I know.
Where do you? That's crazy. No, but that's a good point, Kyle. Love to have this addressed directly because, again, like you said, it was like someone said there was a tornado, so a guy went out to the black box and pushed the tornado button. Is this a cartoon?
Yeah. Our understanding is that with Denver Fire, there's 5 people on every shift that are supposed to confer about this. So there were people that were conferred with, but the proper procedure was not followed. We're past the point of like each of these individual instances, right? Each time it's a different kind of screw up in a different way with the same result, which is that people are not trusting these alerts that are supposed to keep people safe. The mayor's got to fix it. He's got to fix it fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my veil goes to VO scooters, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, and DPS, because there was a story in Denver this week, as well as Denver 7, about Denver talked to the VO folks and the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure about whether kids should be riding these e-scooters and e-bikes. And technically, there is a regulation in place that says you have to be 18 and up to ride them, but there is no enforcement of this. And Children's Hospital said that e-bike injuries have jumped nearly 184% in 1 year, and e-scooter injuries up 84%. I do want to say, anecdotally, the reason that DPS is involved in this for me is I have a good friend who is a middle school teacher, and she's like, they just dump these scooters in front of my school just for the kids. And then there's no safety option. They don't come with helmets. There's no regulation. And I just wonder, like, why we don't care enough about kids' safety. Like, the other thing she said is a lot of my kids are walking a really long distance to get to school from home and back because there is no busing for our school. So to me, this is also on DPS, but nobody wants to have responsibility for it. VO's not responsible. The city's not responsible. And I worry about kids' safety. I see kids flying around on these all the time, no helmets. I wish that we cared more about kids' safety, and we also cared more about getting kids to school safely and home without having for them to find their own ways using these privatized scooters. It's a struggle for me. Okay. Wins. Let's talk about our wins. Kyle, what's your win this week?
This is a really exciting time for Tina Peters and Governor Polis and election deniers everywhere. They're living their best lives. And I just think it's really exciting to see them get a win together. And Tina Peters is now free from prison, and she is back on her baloney about the stolen elections. And she's out talking about how the machines are rigged and how she went to prison because she caught them rigging. She's got a big speaking appearance coming up in a couple of weeks at a MAGA Freedom Festival down in Castle Rock. Tickets range from, I think, $95 to about $2,000 for the VIP package. So she's thriving again. The election denial movement has a big shot in the arm thanks to Governor Polis. So huge win for them.
You know, if Tina Peters is nothing if not consistent. So, you know, good for her for sticking to her guns and staying on her position, unlike some politicians here in Colorado.
And she's no longer burdened by the remorse that she briefly showed in that clemency letter that the governor took at face value too. And you hate to see anybody in their life bogged down by what they've done in the past, especially, you know, remorse and regret. And she appears to have completely freed herself from that. So just what a time for her and her friends.
Polis is over celebrating with his special veto pens. He's just like, look what I'm left and right doing this legislative session. I was like, Adrian, I don't have to ask you. I know how you feel about this.
His ruined legacy. Listen, he will never get a library named after him, and I could not be more pleased. So, I'm
going to go really quick. I just have a quick shout out. Denver, I did a lovely profile of a newish DIY venue here in Denver called the DMV. It's a wonderful profile into what it actually takes to run a space here in Denver these days that is not like a part of Live Nation or AEG. This is just folks that love music. They want to put something on and create a space for artists and the community to come together. They most recently hosted Denver Noise Fest, which is a huge thing to me. I love the noise community here in Denver. They've been doing it for almost 20 years. And DMV is just one of the latest spaces. They pay $4,000 a month, folks, for them to run a warehouse space that just allows for music. So just know it costs a lot of money compared to 15, 20 years ago, but they're still doing it. And I'm just really proud of artists here in Denver for persevering despite the fact that it is unbelievably expensive to exist here. Adrian, you take us out, your win of the week.
Okay, I have two very quickly. So
Okay.
my first win is for Kyle Clark in the CD-8 debate, asking Shannon Bird very directly about her ties to 1 Main Street, Colorado. I'm very grateful that you did not allow her to like wiggle out of her answer. But my personal story is that the executive director, Andrew Short, I was supposed to go on a date with him years ago, and he stood me up. So if that doesn't tell you about who he is and his politics and why we need to stay away, there it is. So thank you very much,
Adrian's dating history always helps us keep track of what's actually going on in
So
politics.
he stood me up and then texted me the next day and was like, I'm so sorry, my stomach was hurting. My guess is that his stomach was warning him, no, he's crazy. Don't do it. And truthfully, I wanted to go on this date so that I could know where the body's buried and ruin the whole operation. But
Of 1 Main Street. Okay.
Yes, he was
so
on
maybe
to
he
me.
did know.
Yes, that is my guess. But thank you for those questions to her. But my second win of the week is that City Park Jazz is back. I attended last weekend at City Park. It's so funny because I saw Kyle Clark there. I was about to go up to him to introduce myself and say hello. And as soon as I'm about to, who walks up to Kyle Clark? Mayor Mike Johnston. That man really ruins everything for me. Like, very truthfully, he ruined my moment. I was like,
I'll
Kyle.
give it to him. I see him at arts events all the time. Like,
well, you know, it was
he's
great
out
to
there.
see him there, blah, blah, blah. But what I will also note is that when it came to the discussion of like the Burden Gazebo and how Kyle Clark and his microgiving campaign has like helped
Incredible.
so that they can rebuild, Kyle Clark received way more applause than the mayor, and I'm super happy with that. So really, it was like Kyle Clark is the winner of the week for me.
You were out there whooping up the crowd for that. I felt like you were on a one-man crusade to make sure that I got a louder applause than the mayor.
Yes, of course.
I want to echo that, Kyle, though. The fact that that you put your power behind getting the bandstand replaced and taking care of that is just incredible. And also a testament, obviously, to your viewers and listeners and everybody in the community that wants to see that thrive. I just want to give a big shout out to, I believe it's the 40th anniversary of City Park Jazz. My friend Andy Burkaw, who also runs the Federal Theater and the Oriental Theater, is the gentleman that books that thing. And that is truly a labor of love for him as well. He's so rooted here in the music scene. And the fact that we have this free offering in our city park every summer is incredible. So thank you both for that. Thank you for going. Thank you for supporting it. Well, that's our
all
big
credit
celebration.
to our viewers. All credit to our viewers, right? They are the ones who raised the $90,000 and they do it every week.
Amazing.
We just started the 7th year of our weekly microgiving, and this past week we were in Gunnison County, then we were up in Routt County. We're all over the state, from the heart of the city out to the far-flung areas, just trying to help other Coloradans. And I think it's very cool that people are willing to help other folks that they have never met, but they just know, hey, we're in this state together and we want it to be a good place to live.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes if folks are unfamiliar with the work that you do there and if they want to contribute as well, because again, this is a weekly thing. Adrian, Kyle, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yes, thank you.
Pleasure making trouble with you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Paul Caroli, Olivia Jewell-Love, Adrian Gonzalez, and Elizabeth Kama. Michelle Polizzi and Natalia Aldana write our morning newsletter. I'm Bree Davies, your host. Our music is by Los Mocachetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Our ad music is by Cuba Quartet from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And tell Executive Director and founder of 1 Main Street, Andrew Short, about us next time you see him. And thanks to our new neighbor, Maddie A., who just joined our membership program. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.